Sonic Adventure was the Hedgehog's first true 3D game. There were attempts 3 years prior with Sonic Labyrinth on Game Gear and Sonic 3D Blast on Genesis and Sega Saturn, both being isometric 3D games. Sonic Jam, a collection of the Genesis Sonic trilogy featuring a full 3D level with missions to complete to unlock collectibles within the game's museum mode. This would feature just a small glimpse of what would eventually become Sonic Adventure, as funny enough, the Sonic World level within Sonic Jam is the only remaining piece of an early prototype of Sonic Adventure. In 2001, Sega announced that they would be stepping away from the console market and focus exclusively on making games. In 2003, Sonic Adventure released on GameCube as Sonic Adventure DX. Later, this version of the game released on PS3, PC, and all Xbox consoles. Although I think the GameCube version of Sonic Adventure is the best version, I will be playing the game on PS3 simply for convenience and ease of recording. With all that being said, games are only as good as their gameplay, with story being a very close second, so let's see how Sonic Adventure holds up with... There isn't much that can be said about Sonic in this game. He plays exactly as you expect he would, running, jumping, it all feels the same as the classic Genesis games. Even the levels play and feel exactly as you would expect. The homing attack is a nice addition to Sonic's base moveset, and the Lightspeed Dash is a perfect addition to Sonic's moveset as an unlockable ability. The Lightspeed attack, however, it's really only used once in the whole game. These new abilities just feel very natural to Sonic as a character, they complement him in a way. In general, this is the only 3D game where mapping all of Sonic's actions to just 2 buttons actually works, and that's because of how the moves operate. The Lightspeed Dash is performed by charging a spin dash for long enough, and the homing attack by tapping the jump button twice. The story part of Sonic's story is exactly as you would expect as well. Eggman does a thing! Go stop him! Grab a few shiny rocks along the way! And as far as Sonic is concerned, this is a completely normal Tuesday. Why the fuck does that puddle have arms? Why is he bullying me? Help! Someone help! A puddle is beating my ass! Tails doesn't differ much from Sonic in this game. Replace the spin dash and lightspeed dash with flight and a tail attack and you essentially have a brand new character. Control of most of the characters in this game feel exactly the same with one major exception, one big exception. Tails plays through mostly the same levels as Sonic, with the only difference being instead of just getting to the end of the level, you're actually racing against Sonic to the end of the level. As well as that, Tails plays through half the amount of levels as Sonic and only plays through one segment of Sonic's levels. Tails also does have one exclusive level to him, that being a snowboarding level, in a sand area. It's Sand Hill, but he's snowboarding, so that means it's actually sandboarding, and there's no joke. That's just what happens. But on that note, that does remind me, I need to talk about the bosses in Sonic Adventure. They are all pathetically easy and usually die within just 2 or 3 hits, barely even lasting a minute. Tails spends the duration of his story reflecting on who he is as a person and his reliance on Sonic. Granted, this doesn't come up to like the second to last cutscene in Tails' story, but still. Tails ends up proving himself as a hero, and all in all, it's just a really cute little story about self-discovery. But sadly, as the franchise moves on, Sega also moves on from Tails' character arc in Sonic Adventure. And in pretty much every game following that, Tails either regresses to who he was before Sonic Adventure, or they just flat out repeat the storyline for all of Tails' playable appearances moving forward. Which, again, is really sad, but what are you gonna do? Just not have a playable Tails? Oh, what the fuck? That'd be like having a Sonic game where you go slow, and that's no bueno. And this is the first part of the game that I'm not really a fan of. Amy's gameplay is slow, and not very engaging for the player. It focuses a lot on platforming, which is a nice way to make Amy stand out from Sonic and Tails, who both were more speed-focused than anything. But the thing that really kills Amy's gameplay is her speed. She's incredibly slow. Her acceleration is slow, her top speed is slow, everything is slow. Her jumping, her using her Pico Pico hammer, which, by the way, I believe this is the first time it was ever used in a game, so cool fun fact. While Amy isn't as slow and unbearable as someone like Big, it's still honestly the worst part of the game. Well, at least the worst part of the game that I actually like. Thankfully, Amy only has 3 levels and a boss fight at the end, although she does spend most of her time running around the hub world, as opposed to playing actual levels, so take that as a positive if you want to. Arguably, Amy's story in Amy's Story is probably the worst part about Amy in this game, as it is literally just Tails' story, but with a bird and a robot chasing you the whole time. It's not even all that different. Amy learns to be independent in her final cutscene, and that's it. That is Amy's entire character arc. She starts the game missing Sonic, she ends the final cutscene no longer missing Sonic and just wanting to impress Sonic. It's not even really a character arc. I want to cover the story part of Knuckles' story first, as I feel it's the first one that actually matters. It's the first one that actually has a story behind the character's story. We explore the lore of the lost Echidna tribe that once inhabited Angel Island, and learn how their power-hungry ways led to their own destruction. And we see directly how Knuckles' ancestors are responsible for the current-day events happening within Sonic Adventure, and why Chaos is so determined to work with Dr. Eggman and destroy Station Square and the whole world. It's implied through the cutscenes of Knuckles' story that Chief Pachacamac, through his wanting to use the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds to essentially give themselves unlimited power to take over the rest of the world and expand their territories, nearly wiped out the Chao, which do appear in this game. In fact, this is their first appearance in the whole franchise. But because of Pachacamac's nearly wiping out the Chao race, trampling over them to get to the Master Emerald, Chaos is filled with rage and then uses the Chaos Emeralds and goes perfect for the first time, leading to the Call having to sacrifice her own life to seal Chaos within the Master Emerald. And yeah, you can see why I say this is the first story I've covered that actually has a story to it. It's so raw, even though the game's presentation is absolutely fucking goofy. I love it. But as we learn more about the Lost Echidna tribe, I feel like Knuckles' gameplay perfectly mirrors it in a way, as throughout the story, we're discovering and learning new things and exploring the past of Sonic's world. Similarly, Knuckles' gameplay has us exploring and learning about the present of Sonic's world through his treasure hunting. Similarly to Sonic, all of Knuckles' abilities in this game just feel very natural and very... I don't know how to put it. It just feels right to you as the player. There's only one level in the entirety of Knuckles' story that kind of goes against this, but I'll get to that later. Essentially, whenever you jump and glide as Knuckles, it works exactly as you would expect it would. No weird charge-up animation, no quick descent and slowing down halfway through the glide. It's perfect. You start, you glide, you get to where you want to go. I mean, you could essentially complete all of Knuckles' story just by eyeballing where you want to go and just gliding. It's essentially flying in this game, and I love it. In terms of fighting enemies, you don't really do that in Knuckles' story. I mean, you do have your 3 boss fights against Chaos in his 3 different forms, but, you know, there's not really fighting regular enemies aside from when they have a Master Emerald Shard, and usually then you just jump on them and they die, so combat doesn't really exist for a more combat-focused character like Knuckles. Which leads me to Knuckles' Sky Deck. This one's kind of a tossed coin. If it's absolute shit, it makes me want to throw my controller and then diarrhea shit all over an orphan's face, or if it's actually quite a pleasant time and ends before any of the chaos can begin. You know, it's a very inconsistent level, and that is entirely due to the stage's gravity mechanics. See, you push this lever and it tilts the ship's gravity. And that ruins Knuckles' glide sometimes. Ground movement is essentially the same as Sonic, and you know with gravity it's already going to be jacked up as is. But whenever you have to account for having to glide or climb a wall as Knuckles to get to the pieces of the Master Emerald, it doesn't really work too well with the gravity. I mean, I got lucky in my playthrough on PS3 as the only time I only had to tilt the ship in one direction, and all 3 shards were super easy to get. I only had a slight trouble with the last one, and that's because I had to climb a wall, and Knuckles just didn't want to climb that wall for some reason. Probably something with the collision. Even if you do have a bad run through Skydeck, it doesn't completely ruin Knuckles' story, which is something that I would not have said just a couple of years ago. As a couple of years ago, I would have said, no, Skydeck completely ruins Knuckles for me and makes me dread playing him. In reality, it's kind of all dependent on how lucky you get with the Master Emerald Shard spawns. And yeah, one bad stage does not ruin a character, just like how one bad moment in a video game does not ruin the whole game. It just kind of makes you want to put off doing that particular part of the game, because you have no idea if you're going to have a fun time, or you're going to have a controller throwing shitting on an orphan time. Unlike a certain big motherfucker! We awaken, our creator greeting us, welcoming us to the world, and telling us how we are one of his greatest creations, and we will be one of his greatest tools for destruction. Gamma is the first time that we play and see the POV of an Eggman robot, and it is truly depressing. It serves as a great showing for just how cruel and spiteful Dr. Eggman can be in any adaptation, and it is truly horrifying. It honestly makes you wonder, how come more Eggman robots before haven't defected? Gamma stages are most similar to that of the mech stages from Sonic Adventure 2. That being, instead of clunky platforming controls, we actually run through kind of Sonic-esque stages, and every time we get together an action chain and shoot a bunch of enemies or objects, instead of increasing our score, we actually increase our time in the level, as the timer is counting down as opposed to counting up in every other character's story. After Gamma seeing the horrors of Eggman's cruelty and watching as his brothers were essentially just blown up in front of his eyes, and seeing one of them completely disassembled and being repurposed into something else, Gamma decides to turn on Eggman after freeing Amy Rose from the now crashing egg carrier. With Stage 3 of Gamma's story onwards, we switch from completing objectives for Eggman to actually completing our own new primary function, that being to save the E-Series robots. And by save, of course, I mean brutally murder them, and then free the little animals inside. Sadly, however, this does lead to Gamma's death at the end of his story after his final boss fight against E-101 Beta, as after defeating the robot in the robot's final acts of, I guess, fuck you to Gamma, he then shoots Gamma in the back, leading to Gamma's destruction, freeing the little bird, which then directly correlates to Amy's story, as Amy's story ends with her finding the little bird's family, which conveniently was Gamma and Beta. So it's sad, actually, but it's still very sweet at the same time. I don't know. I have so many confused emotions, especially in that scene where I started questioning if Gamma was going to kill himself if he didn't die fighting Beta. Ugh. A lot of weird things going on with that story. But no matter how janky and weird and unpolished the game may be, no matter how goofy the presentation of the story of Sonic Adventure may be, one thing is for certain, Sega clearly cared about Gamma. Yes, the presentation isn't the best, but still, Sega cared, and I hope that Gamma finally does find peace with who he is. Now I wish I could say any of that about... First of all, fuck this cat, 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 fuck this cat. Yeah, I don't like Big in this game. So, somehow, despite only having 4 levels and then a boss fight at the very end, somehow, and I don't know why, but Big is always the longest, most difficult playthrough of any of the 6 playable characters in this game. And it's all because of one motherfucking goddamn piece of shit fucking mechanic, and that is fishing. It's not platforming, it's not difficult puzzle solving, it's not shooting galleries, it's not Pico hammers, it's not treasure hunting, no. It's fishing. It's fucking fishing that gets me every... Hi, yeah, this is William from the future in the middle of editing the video. I go on for like 17 minutes on how Big is bad, and it was like a single breath take for like 17 minutes of me just ranting, and I'm just gonna cut it down. Essentially, moving around the hub world is just slow and unbearable. Big's gameplay is finicky and unfinished, and it's very clear the developers did not test it at all. I talk about how Sonic Adventure only had like a 10-month development span, which I find very interesting and very commendable, actually. But it's clear Big was a last-minute addition to the game. He was not thought out very well. And I go on for like 17 minutes about that, and then I start comparing Big to characters like Amy and all of the others, and how much better they are in comparison, and how they're actually polished and well thought out, and yeah, I'm just gonna save you guys like near like 15 minutes of video and just say Big is bad. His final level is the worst, and if you ever do play Sonic Adventure, remember, when a fish bites onto your hook, push down on the analog stick to catch them. The game doesn't explain this to you. Nowhere does it explain this to you. Also, in the final boss, wait till Chaos is right next to you and with his mouth open, then cast your line, and the boss will literally be done in like just a second. So yeah, that's the entire rent compressed down to whatever this is. Anyways, sorry about that. On to the last story. Thank you for your patience. Long ago, an ancient Echidna tribe known as the Knuckles clan tried to steal the Chaos Emeralds, but their guardian Chaos, the god of destruction, fought back, almost completely wiping out the entire clan. To prevent Chaos's rage from spreading, Tikal, the daughter of Echidna chief Pachacamac, sealed Chaos and herself within the Master Emerald. Years later, Dr. Eggman found a stone tablet after his defeat on Angel Island, telling the story of Chaos, and how unleashing his rage with the power of the 7 Chaos Emeralds could destroy the world. Eggman saw this as an opportunity to finally take over and build his dream Robotnik Land. In freeing Chaos, the Master Emerald shattered and scattered across the land, leaving Angel Island from its mighty perch to fall into the ocean, next to the Mystic Ruins, where the Echidnas once stood proud and tall. Throughout the game, Eggman comes very close with succeeding in his goal to unleash perfect chaos. But sadly, he fails, as Chaos 6 is defeated by the combined might of Sonic, Knuckles, and Big, the useless cat. Sonic defeats Eggman, ruining his plans. Tails stops a missile from blowing up Station Square. Knuckles restores the Master Emerald. Amy beats Zero and frees all the little birds and whatever her story was about. Big does absolutely nothing, and Gamma fucking dies. How tragic. Which brings us to the last story. On Angel Island, Knuckles finds a passed out Dr. Eggman. Eggman tries to warn Knuckles about Chaos, but it's too late. Chaos attacks, stealing all 6 of the Chaos Emeralds Knuckles brought back with him at the end of his story after defeating Chaos 6. Sonic and Tails race to find the last Chaos Emerald before Chaos does, but they're too late. Chaos, now with all 7 Chaos Emeralds, transforms into perfect chaos and destroys Station Square. Tikal, who had been our guiding light throughout the entire game, giving us tutorial prompts, even giving us hints in the Knuckles campaign. She finally reveals herself and tells us how Chaos is filled with anger and hatred, and has used the negative power of the Chaos Emerald and must be sealed away back within the Master Emerald. However, Sonic understands that that will do nothing. That won't change how Chaos feels inside. That won't get rid of his anger. That'll only allow him to stew and build again and emerge like 100 years or so, way angrier, way stronger. It'll be a never-ending cycle. And so, using the positive power of the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic transforms into Super Sonic. Crush 40's Open Your Heart starts playing, and a kick-ass, admittedly incredibly easy, but kick-ass nonetheless, final boss begins.
Thunder, rain, and lightning, danger, water rising, clamor, sirens wailing. It's a trick-back slime. Shadows, dark creatures, steel clouds floating in the air. People run for shelter. What's gonna happen to us? All the steps we take, all the moves we make, all the pain at stake. I see the chaos for everyone. Who are we? What can we do? You and I are the same in the way that we have our own styles and we won't change. You're the filled with evil and mine is not. There is no way I can lose. Can't hold on much longer. I will never let go. I know it's a one-way track. Tell me now how long this will last. I'm not gonna think this way. Nor will I count on others. Close my eyes and feel it burn. Now I see what I've gotta do. Open your heart, it's gonna be alright. Ancient cities blazing, shadows keep attacking, little children crying, confusion, hopeless anger. I don't know what it can be, but you drive me crazy. All your cunning tricks make me sick. You won't have it your own way. Can't hold on much longer, but I will never let go. I know it's a one-way track. Tell me now how long this will last. I'm not gonna think this way. Nor will I count on others. Close my eyes and feel it burn. Now I see what I've gotta do. Open your heart and you will say.
After Perfect Chaos is defeated and his anger has been subsided, Tikal takes Chaos to the heavens, where both of their spirits may finally rest in peace. At least until Sega decides to bring them back in a spin-off game or as parts of some sort of GameCube exclusive multiplayer mode in the following mainline Sonic game, but that'll never happen. Sega, greedy corporation? Nah, they're a saint. That'll never happen.
All's well that ends well, right?
But getting into the actual gameplay of the last story, there's not really much to talk about. You play as Sonic in the hub world with Sonic standard controls, and after you return from the Mystic Ruins, after Chaos grabs the last Chaos Emerald, you get a bunch of cutscenes, Sonic turns into Super Sonic, and then you just play the final boss. Even then, Sonic doesn't really control all that different. You can jump, homing attack, and that's about it. All of Sonic's other movesets aren't there. All you can do is jump. You collect rings, you go fast, and then you beat Chaos. That's it. You do that twice for Phase 1 and 2, and that's it. You beat the game. Good job. I don't know what you want me to say here. There's nothing to say when it comes to gameplay. All in all, the story and characters in Sonic Adventure are pretty solid, but I hardly touched on the level design itself. Despite this, I believe that level design is actually the second most important thing next to gameplay. That being said, I'm not going over every single level, just some of the standouts in my opinion, and all of the hub worlds because, they're actually kind of important, as opposed to fucking Big the Cat's Ice Cap, which is just a single cut down section of Sonic's. Wow, how interesting. All of the characters in the game go through the hub world. And as mentioned, some characters like Amy and Big actually spend most of their stories running around the hub world, going from level to level, as opposed to actually spending all their time within the level itself. The hub itself is split into a handful of main locations. Station Square is your typical big city setting. You have tall skyscrapers, buildings you can walk into, hamburger guy statues, cars driving, policemen blocking sewer grades, and of course people wandering around that you can talk to. The train takes us to the Mystic Ruins. The Mystic Ruins, being your standard archaeological site type area, is actually the largest hub world in the game, being split into 3 main sections. The first one is what I like to call Train Station. Train Station is by far the most important, as here we have 3 major boss fights. We have the Egg Hornet with Sonic and Tails, the rival battle with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, as well as that we then have the Chaos 4 boss fight with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles once again. From here we can access the weird cave area, which takes us to Ice Cap, Red Mountain, and Angel Island. We can also directly access the first Chao Garden in the game here, as well as that we can then head to the jungle area, where we can access Lost World and Final Egg on occasion, depending on what part of the story you're playing in with which character. The Egg Carrier is actually the largest in scale, that being it's a giant flying battle fortress that you can go in and out of whenever you feel like. Despite being so large and such a major part of the story, the Egg Carrier as a hub world actually isn't all that interesting. It changes shape as soon as you land on it, so you don't actually get time to get used to the layout and learn what makes the ship change so different, and why it's so difficult to get to the Skydeck, even though the cutscene trigger is literally right in front of the entrance to Skydeck, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think Sega really thought this through a lot. Finally, we have the Echidna Tribe. Their hub world is only accessible by 3 main characters, that being Knuckles, Amy, and Tails, as during their flashbacks you actually get to explore and find character upgrades within the past in the Echidna world. Which reminds me, character upgrades are a thing, and they're mostly hit or miss. All of the playable characters have one major upgrade that is mandatory for their story to progress, and then they have 1 or 2, if any, extra upgrades that you could find that don't really impact gameplay so much, but they're kinda weird. Let me give an example. In Sonic's story, after completing Windy Valley, we need to collect the Lightspeed Dash before we can enter Stage 3, Casinopolis. However, after obtaining the Lightspeed Dash, you can then immediately obtain the Crystal Ring, which cuts the charge time for the Lightspeed Dash in half. In other words, as soon as you get the Lightspeed Dash, you immediately upgrade it, meaning you use the thing a total of 1 time unupgraded. And furthermore, it's not like the upgrade is actually hidden. If anything, Sonic's upgrades are the easiest to find. Now, while Sonic's Crystal Ring may seem entirely useless, as wouldn't it be easier for the programmers just to combine the 2 abilities into one, and save us the trouble of having to get the Crystal Ring after getting the Spin Dash, especially since to enter Casinopolis, you have to go through the hotel, which passes right by the Crystal Ring. It wasn't very well thought out. But when it comes to other characters like Knuckles, Gamma, and Big, also, it is incredibly difficult to miss their upgrades, especially for Big. Big's floaty upgrade is right outside the entrance to Ice Cap. It is so easy to find, and the worst part is you never actually need Big's floaty upgrade to catch Froggy in any of the levels. You don't even need it for the Chaos 6 boss fight. It's literally just an upgrade to cross the water gap to enter Ice Cap. I'm convinced that's the only reason the floaty upgrade exists. Knuckles gets the Shovel Claw, which, you do kind of have to go out of your way for, but again, it blocks progression until you have the Shovel Claw. But the problem is, usually 9 times out of 10 in Red Mountain, the stage immediately after Knuckles obtains the Shovel Claw, usually at least 1 or 2 of the Master Emerald shards are hidden underground, so that way you actually have to dig for them. The problem is, that's completely random, meaning if you're someone like me and got lucky, you don't actually have to dig underground, which essentially means in my playthrough, I only needed the Shovel Claw to enter Red Mountain, which is fucking hilarious to me. Thankfully, Sonic Adventure 2 does actually fix this problem, as the level where you obtain the upgrades is the level that you immediately need to use it, and the level almost acts like a tutorial, unlike Sonic Adventure, where your tutorial is somewhere in the hub world where you collect the item, and then it's up in the air if you actually use it within the levels itself. The Lightspeed Dash in Sonic Story is actually used, which again makes me question why the Crystal Ring was a separate upgrade, because the charge time is almost negligible. Like, seriously, it's just a half a second faster than without the Crystal Ring upgrade. And in terms of Sonic's Lightspeed attack, it's literally only used to get into Red Mountain. And again, I'm convinced that's the only reason the Lightspeed attack even exists as an upgrade for Sonic. You don't even have to go out of your way to find it. It's literally just way off to the left, sitting on a rock next to the monkey. Amy gets the Warrior Feather, which is... First of all, how you obtain it is fucking stupid, because once Gamma breaks you out of jail, you then have to complete a Whack-A-Mole minigame in order to progress the story. You collect the Warrior Feather by beating the high score on Whack-A-Mole. Essentially, you're just handed the Warrior Feather as part of the story. And the worst part is, the Warrior Feather isn't even useful within Amy's story. It just allows you to do a hammer spin on the ground. It's not even a useful ability. You can't even use it to cheese Whack-A-Mole and get an even high score, which I never did this in-game because I didn't have the patience for it, but I do believe that's how you actually get a second upgrade for Amy. But please, correct me if I'm wrong. Tails gets the Rhythm Badge that you have to collect within the Echidna's ancient homeworld before you can move on, meaning if you're a dumb kid like me way back 2 years ago, Jesus Christ, I was only a kid a few years ago. But yeah, if you were a dumb kid like me a few years ago, you're gonna end up spending like an hour just running around trying to find the cutscene trigger, just to realize you have to collect the Rhythm Badge first, then you have to find the cutscene trigger. And again, the Rhythm Badge, it's somewhat of an upgrade. I mean, Tails' standard tail attack is just kind of a quick spin. At least with the Rhythm Badge, almost like a spin dash, you can keep it going for longer, but again, it's more of just a quality of life feature than an actual upgrade to Tails as a character. And then finally, also as part of Gamma's story, flat out told you in a cutscene, we have the Hoverjet. It's a collectible upgrade that you get in the egg carrier. You're instructed by Eggman to go into a door and collect it, and then you can hover around as Gamma. It's really only useful in the final level of Gamma's story, that being Hot Shelter. And even then, it's not necessary, it's just kind of a quality of life thing again. I don't know, the upgrades in Sonic Adventure don't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Emerald Coast, Windy Valley, Speed Highway, and Lost World are 4 standout levels to me, and I feel that these are the very best of what Sonic Adventure has to offer. Aside from starting brand new save files and replaying the game from the very beginning all the way to the very end, I feel like Sonic Adventure does have a slight replay problem. And by that I mean, aside from replaying your favorite levels over and over and over again until you get absolutely sick of them and want to vomit, the game doesn't really give us much of a reason to continuously replay the game and even our favorite levels over and over. Thankfully, there are trial missions that you can do coming in ranks C, B, and A. C being for completing the level within the main story, B usually completing the level with some arbitrary add-on like completing it with this amount of rings or defeating this amount of enemies. And then finally, level A is usually a time trial beating the level within a certain time limit, or I just think that there's a slight replay problem with the base game of Sonic Adventure. Now, Sonic Adventure DX does somewhat fix this, as collecting all 130 emblems within the game does unlock a Metal Sonic character. However, it's just a reskin of Sonic, and you run through all the same levels as Sonic, so that kind of helps, but it doesn't really fix the main issue. Now, despite me saying there's a replay problem, there really isn't a replay problem, as with any other Sonic game in general. You're really just replaying the stages for how fun they are, and really, that's just games in general. You really think kids back in the 80s went and played Pac-Man or Donkey Kong because they were these massive 70, 80-hour games with nothing but content from beginning to end? No, they were bored, and they thought Pac-Man and Donkey Kong were fun. And that's exactly what Sonic Adventure is to me. Despite the game being very janky and a little unpolished at times, it's still incredibly fun. And finally, the visuals and music. Now, I'm not going to go on and on and on because, quite frankly, not only have you been hearing what this game has to offer music-wise, you've also been seeing what this game has to offer visual-wise. In conclusion, I think the entire game's soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal and amazing in every single way. Not a single track misses, except for Amy's theme. I don't like Big's theme that much, but Amy's theme is the only track in the game next to the second Red Mountain track that just don't work for me. I don't think they fit the game at all. And just Amy's theme, I don't think it matches the character, the game, and just quite frankly, as a song, I don't like it. I don't like it, quite simple. And when it comes to how the game looks, I think it looks pretty good, especially for 1998 and 2003, and even into the present day. I think Sonic Adventure holds up fairly well. Its textures are nice, the lighting is nice, the character models look pretty good for the most part. The only thing that I'll actually give my opinion on here is I feel like the Sonic Adventure DX models look far better than the original Dreamcast models. To me, it's kind of like comparing the original Super Mario 64 versus the Mario 96 render mod that you can get on a PC pirated copy of the game. To me, the original Dreamcast models are bulky and low poly, and they look like a block of cheese compared to the Sonic Adventure DX models, which try their absolute hardest to not only somewhat replicate the art style at the time for like the promo images, but also to get as close as they can to matching the CG renders and cutscenes from around the time of Sonic Adventure's release. And honestly, kudos to Sega for when they ported Sonic Adventure over, trying to match that art style, as I feel like actually matching that art style goes a long way to making Sonic feel like Sonic in this game. Because to me, Dreamcast Sonic is just a taller classic Sonic. Adventure DX Sonic, oh, now that hog knows how to treat a gal. The only real problem that Sonic Adventure suffers from is being a little bit outdated, and by that I mean Sonic Adventure, supposedly, as the story goes, only had 10 months of development time when it came out for Dreamcast originally. And supposedly, how the story goes is the game started off on Sega Saturn, which is where we got the Sonic World level being part of a scrapped prototype, and then the game was completely scrapped and started over again just in time to come out for the launch of the Dreamcast. Now, I don't know if Sega went back and tried to fix anything when creating the DX port to GameCube, but one thing that does show through, even from back then and onto the present day, is Sonic Adventure as a game is horribly janky and suffers from hit-or-miss collision detection. And by that I mean lots of times when playing the game, and you notice this especially as Sonic and Big, you tend to just randomly get stuck on nothing, or whenever you're moving at high speed, Sonic will bump against a wall and be shot in the complete opposite direction. That or all of your momentum will be taken away and Sonic will just kind of be stuck in the wall, like he tripped on a rock or something. It's never really a huge issue, but there are a few places in the game where it is just incredibly noticeable that this game was kind of slapped together with some duct tape and a prayer. But despite all of that, I still absolutely adore Sonic Adventure. I will admit, I probably have not gotten all of my opinions and thoughts on this game out as much as I would like to, and someday in the future, if YouTube does work out for me, I would like to go back and re-review Sonic Adventure, hopefully with much better skills, so that way I can properly sit down and go through the nitty-gritty of this game, and talk about every single thing that I absolutely love and adore, like how I feel like this game, above all else, perfectly characterizes everyone who appears. Sonic, this fun-loving adventurer, Tails, this nerdy kid, Knuckles, this warrior with a lonely past, Eggman being fucking Hitler but egg-shaped. I love the characterizations, but I don't always love the gameplay, as sometimes, you roll the dice, you get 2 ones, and the game decides just to have an absolute fucking seizure on you. Which is why I say Sonic Adventure is amazing and still holds up today, but it's a little bit janky. 8 out of 10. Alright, and that's the entirety of Sonic Adventure. Let's see. Talked about the characters, their gameplay, I talked about the story, the music, the visuals. I'm not forgetting anything. I didn't talk about the Chao Garden, but I don't know. I don't really have much to say about SA1's Chao Garden. Yeah, that's everything, you know. I don't think I'm forgetting anything in, Oh shit, the mini games!